Today we're taking a look at the Alps GlidePoint keypad for macOS 6.04 and up, a monstrosity of a 90s peripheral that makes some pretty big promises. But there's more to this story than just a chunky piece of plastic with questionable utility, so let's open up this sealed example, explore a bit of the history behind it, and see if it lives up to its claims. So stay tuned. Today's Trackpad shenanigans are brought to you by PCBWAY. So many retro computing projects that we've come to depend on started with prototyping via PCBWAY.com, in no small part due to their great pricing and turnarounds as fast as 24 hours. And now is the perfect time to try them yourself, with the annual year-end sale where HDI and Flex PCBs are up to 15% off. For more details, check out the special link in the description below. Now, before we open this new old stock GlidePoint, let's talk a little bit about why it exists. This is Dr. George Grafiti, one of the most important people in computing history that you've probably never heard of. Back in the 70s and early 80s, the hot new tech was this, which when combined with a graphical user interface opened up entirely new ways to visually and intuitively interact with computers. But Dr. Grafiti, he really didn't like the mouse. To him, it seemed like it actually added inconvenience instead of removing it. For example, when you're typing away on code, why would you want to completely remove your hand from the keyboard, reach over to a completely separate peripheral sitting next to your computer, and wiggle it around just to use normal software features? Is Control S to save your document really so difficult? Fortunately, Dr. Grafiti is also a really smart guy. If graphical interfaces were to be the way of the future, then he was going to design a better way to interact with them than a stupid mouse. After some experimentation, he devised a grid that generated an electrical field which could be distorted by a finger and could be placed under a smooth surface that a finger could run across. You might be familiar with such a device today. Dr. Grafiti initially called the device the Cat as a funny nod to the inferior mouse, but eventually he renamed it GlidePoint. He shopped the GlidePoint around to a ton of companies, most of which were either not interested in producing it or gave terrible lowball offers like buying the patents for the device for $75,000. But sometime around 1990 or 91, Dr. Grafiti took a meeting at Apple to talk about the GlidePoint, and thankfully for modern computing, they loved it. Apple signed a licensing deal, and in 1994, the PowerBook 500 was the very first laptop to use the now ubiquitous touchpad, which brings us back to our Alps GlidePoint. With the money from the Apple deal, Dr. Grafiti founded a company called Circ to develop new products using the GlidePoint, and Alps, a Japanese company, made a licensing deal with Circ to produce peripherals with the GlidePoint, and produce them they did. They made a ton of interesting trackpads and keyboards with trackpads, and of course, our weird number pad trackpad thing here, the GlidePoint keypad. Now, there's a lot more to this fascinating story, and I'll include a link in the description where you can read way more about it. And there's also a really interesting interview with Dr. Grafiti from the Computer History Museum, which I'll also link. But now I think it's time to break this thing open and see if it lives up to its 90s hype. Okay, so taking a look at this package, it offers the perfect combination for portable computing with a full-size numeric keypad, built-in Alps GlidePoint touchpad, a unique integrated design. The top cover folds underneath it to become a stand, and it's Macintosh ADB compatible. And the idea here was really that you would take this along with you traveling with your laptop, and you would use this instead of whatever pointing device your laptop did or did not have. There was this Macintosh version, and there was also a serial version for PC. So one complaint that I've heard about these is that the keypad is actually pretty terrible. It's not like nice switches in there. It's spongy and really not great. I mean, the box says it's premium Alps mechanical keys, but from everything I've read, it's very underwhelming. So Yeah, there's not too much more to say about this packaging other than it promises that it's your best friend when traveling. So let's crack this thing open and see what it's like. So inside the box here, we have a nice printed glossy manual with some registration information and a limited lifetime warranty certificate of ownership, which I will frame and hang on my wall. And then inside our cardboard packaging here is the main event. We have our Glide Point trackpad, which is actually a lot thinner than I expected it to be. And surprisingly, we have two PS2 cables. Oh, it's a pass-through. Oh, that's actually very nice. Thank you. We have a PS2 cable with a pass-through so you can connect something else like a keyboard. Cool. And then we also have a floppy disk with drivers that says, by opening this sealed diskette envelope, you agree to be bound by the terms of the enclosed agreement. Geez, that's pretty rough. If you do not accept the terms of this agreement, return the unopened package and all accompanying items to place of purchase within 30 days for a complete refund. Wow. Why did they take such a hard line with this sticker here? But yeah, I guess I agree. This is like really glued shut. And our diskette. Now looking this thing over, I actually kind of like the design of it. It is a lot thinner than I expected. I thought it was going to be a way chunkier piece of plastic. And it's very light. It doesn't weigh hardly anything. I was a little confused how to open it at first, but you have to kind of slide this top bit down and it's a little bit annoying. But it does fold nicely under the pad to give it a nice typing angle. And I especially like this warning label here. Please read the Alps Ergonomic Safety and Comfort Guide before using this product on this bright red sticker, which has come off in one piece, and I will now be sticking it to my iPad. Now, as far as these keys go, I mean, it said mechanical on the packaging, but they certainly don't feel that way. They just feel kind of like a mushy 90s keyboard. I think they actually feel a little bit worse than like PowerBook keys of the time, which I guess we should compare. And, well, these buttons are nice and clicky. And this is just kind of a standard feeling touchpad. Feels like any old 90s laptop touchpad, maybe a hair smoother than I would expect. But yeah, all in all, just feels like normal 90s technology. So next to my PowerBook 165, I think this looks pretty good. I mean, the color really seems to match the color on the PowerBook. The keys are a little bit different, but yeah, the plastic is a surprisingly good match. Now, the screen is a little bit iffy, but I think this will suit our purposes for testing. And as we can see, it's a little ghosty, but the mouse works. We can see the mouse, and yeah, the trackpad works just fine. Actually, it's a lot smoother than I was expecting. So unfortunately, the PowerBook gave up the ghost after freezing a couple of times and now won't start. So I have the next best thing, my trusty cursed Macintosh SE30, and I've got the Alps connected to it, and yeah, it works just fine without any kind of drivers or anything. It just plugs and plays. And this is running system 7.1, which is actually what I think the PowerBook was running as well. And yeah, it seems to work great. So if you're going out to Starbucks and you want to take your mostly portable Mac SE30 with you to write your great American novel, and you don't want to use your mouse on the tiny table and, knock over all your coffees and stuff, just bring this Alps keypad thing and you'll have this nice handy little very responsive trackpad. All right, I have one other computer I want to try this out on. This is the last Apple laptop to use ADB. This is the PowerBook G3PDQ from 1998. And in case you're wondering about this fan here, don't worry about it. So this might overheat just a little bit. And in case you're wondering why it's on the OS X installer, well, this laptop has now decided that it hates hard drives. But anyway, I can confirm that the Alps trackpad does indeed work on OS X, and we can try to install Mac OS X Puma onto what's probably also a hard drive it's not going to read. And this is probably the least useful combination here because you can get other much smaller external number pads for laptop, and this already has a pretty decent trackpad that can support tap to click. So yeah, not really a match here, but in case you were wondering, it does work. So that's the Alps Glide Point keypad. Is it really the perfect combination for portable computing? Well, I'm not too sure, but it's a lot better than I expected it would be. And yeah, it's very difficult to close, but who's going to close this? I'm going to keep this next to my... Well, no, I can't get it open. Okay, I take it back. This thing is not that good. Don't buy this. Your laptop already has a trackpad. And yeah, that's the Alps. So if you enjoy these kinds of Macintosh-ish shenanigans, please subscribe down below. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And thank you very much for watching. And a special thanks to Chris, Justin, Sorta Eclectic, and Spike, who are my highest tiered patrons, and all of my Patreon supporters for helping make these shenanigans possible.